Letters Home, Cowboys War. This is a look inside the life of Robert Cowboy Stout, a Wyoming son and a World War II fighter pilot. Included is a collection of Cowboy's letters, government correspondence, photographs, and articles while Robert was training and eventually fighting in World War II as a fighter pilot. Robert F. Stout grew up in Fort Laramie, Wyoming on a farm. In 1940, while attending the University of Wyoming, Cowboy enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserve. In February 1941, Cowboy entered flight training in Florida and received his wings on September 19, 1941. In a letter from Florida, Robert wrote, "This is supposedly the choice duty of the Navy and very exciting, being a fighter pilot and stuff." Robert was very proud to be serving his country. In another letter while in Florida, he wrote, "I'm growing hungrier every day for some of your cooking, Mother, so clean up the frying skillet." World War II began for the United States on December 7, 1941, when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, as shown in the Wyoming State Tribune. Robert was stationed in San Diego, California on special aviation duty. In a letter to his mom and dad on March 11, 1942, he wrote, "This is probably the last letter you receive from me for some time, so don't be alarmed." Unlike the modern methods today of email and the telephone, writing letters were Robert's only source of communication. On August 7, 1942, U.S. Marines launched their first invasion of World War II on Guadalcanal. During these months of fighting in Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands, Cowboy shot down 6 Japanese planes, and the United States showed its appreciation of this extraordinary heroism by presenting Robert with the Navy Cross, the highest Navy combat medal. In December 1942, Cowboy returned to the United States as a captain. He later transferred to the VMF 114 and became the squadron executive officer. The squadron departed in October 1943 for Pearl Harbor. While on the ship to Pearl Harbor, Robert wrote to his mother and dad and said, "I am really enthused about this tour of duty, so just dry your eyes, Mother, and I will be seeing you sooner than first anticipated." Robert's letter, December 24, 1943, to his mom and dad, says, "This is Christmas Eve, and very unlike any Christmas Eve I have ever spent before. I did though receive about the grandest present that a lad could ever ask for, and that was 2 letters from you, a letter from Russell, and 1 from Jack." On March 5, 1944, the VMF 114 Squadron was assigned to the New Hebrides Islands, located in the South Pacific. Robert wrote to his folks on July 20, 1944, and said, "Yesterday was a most unusual and provident day. The Post Office Department racked up an overwhelming victory by depositing 4 letters from you in my mailbox." On September 15, 1944, U.S. forces invaded the island of Palau in the Palau group. Major Stout was the first Corsair pilot to land on the island. In one of Robert's last letters, dated February 21, 1945, he wrote, "Yes, Mother, I will come home first and then go to Missouri." Robert Cowboy Stout didn't make it home to see his mother. On March 4, 1945, Major Stout led his flight of Corsairs on a morning bombing. Robert was shot down by anti-aircraft and was last seen by his wingman, Bud Daniel. Following is an interview with Cowboy's wingman, Bud Daniel. Bud, when did you meet Cowboy?
I first saw Cowboy at a football game in Laramie in 1940. And then I was called to a meeting. Well, no, what happened was at Palau in the South Pacific, I was called over to his tent and he was checking on me to see if I was capable of being assigned to join the squadron. And he did it by we had a flight, and we had gunnery on a tow sleeve. And when we got down, he accepted me as his wingman, which was a big thrill to me.
What was it like to fly with Cowboy?
Flying with him was not only a privilege, but it was a great assignment. Every pilot in our squadron would have loved to fly his wing. He was a great leader, and I felt I could follow him anywhere. I really believe that he saved us on more than one situation on a strike as we were flying in combat.
How did you feel about Cowboy?
Every man in 114, every man in the squadron loved him. And as an example of what kind of a man he was, at Thanksgiving in 1944, we were eating K rations and soup. A couple of our pilots went out to a Swedish merchant marine ship and traded a couple of bottles of whiskey for 3 turkeys. Before the pilots could look forward to a turkey dinner, Stout ordered the turkeys cut up to feed 360 men. That was the mark of a real leader. We all, the pilots and enlisted men, loved it.
But tell me about the last flight with Cowboy.
Wait a minute, I got that. Okay. The last flight with Cowboy was quite a dramatic situation. We were briefed early one morning, and were set to take off and go up to a strike at Caroor Island. It was sunrise. We were briefed well before sunrise on March 4th, 1945. 24 airplanes from our squadron and 24 from 3 other squadrons were to attack Battery Hill and other targets over Caroor. We each were carrying a 265-gallon belly tank of napalm to drop on an area about the size of Prexy's pasture at the University of Wyoming. The napalm is terrible stuff. It burns down even through sand. Cowboy and I were the first planes to go in. We went in right on the water, out of the sun, hopping over some hogbacks and hoping to surprise them. The only people that got surprised were Cowboy and I. After we released our napalm, an explosive shell bounced me up and over to the right. I glanced over to see Cowboy's right wing fly off as a result of a direct hit on his airplane. I saw a splash into a swamp area. Cowboy never knew what hit him because it was so sudden. A terrible feeling of depression hit me as I realized that the Cowboy was gone.
On April 21st, 1947, Robert's father received a letter stating that Robert's remains had been recovered and identified. The Western Union telegram stated that Robert's remains were en route to the United States. The flag, which was draped over his coffin, represents the love for his country. Robert F. Stout's career as a fighter pilot was featured in Collier's magazine, Ladies' Home Journal, a CBS radio program, and in a book titled Friends, Dear Friends, and Heroes by Bill Cantrell. Major Robert Tucker said in praise of his friend Cowboy, "He was made of the stuff that makes Marine Corps legends. To know him was to like him, and to like him was to acquire a lifelong friend." Robert Cowboy Stout was my great-great-uncle, and this was Cowboys War.